Greetings, math fans. All right, so this is review sheet 2, and there's a lot of problems in this review sheet. There's like 24 problems, but I pretty much guarantee you, if you can do every one of these problems, you'll get an A+ on your test. Just what it is. It's basically, it covers two different things, and it covers factoring, and then it covers solving. So you got to remember that. So like the front of this page, or the first page here, it's all factoring. Okay, there's no equal sign, so you literally factor, and your answer is going to be x plus 3 times x minus 7, or 2x plus 3 minus 8. That's what it's going to look like. Okay. On the other side, the second page, that's when you're going to say x equals 5, x equals 9, x equals 2. So you're going to factor first, if you have to, and then you're going to set each of those equal to 0 and solve. Okay? All right, so let's just kind of keep that straight. All right, so let's just get going here and just start doing the problems. Okay, so number one, basically, that definitely looks like a greatest common factor, right? You got to see what goes into 24 and 18. Well, it turns out it's 6. So I'm going to write here, my greatest common factor is 6. And there's an a here, an a squared, so it's a. And there's a b and a b, so a and b. So 6ab. So I'm going to divide each of these by 6ab. Okay, and please don't forget to put this greatest common factor in front, so 6ab, and then if you divide that out, you're going to get 4a minus 3. Okay, next problem is the difference of two squares. Again, you recognize that because you see a square there. That's a pretty good indicator, and 49 is a perfect square, and it's a minus sign. Okay, so the square root of x squared is x, square root of 49 is 7. Remember I told you guys to do that, and then this is the one where you put the plus and the minus here, and you write x and 7 and x and 7. So it's x plus 7, x minus 7. Okay? This is definitely, these are perfect cubes. It's a difference of two cubes, so c cubed, that just becomes c, and the cube root of 64 is 4. Remember I told you, write those on the side here, all the different cubes or squares. Just type in your calculator 1 cubed, 2 cubed, 3 cubed, 4 cubed, etc. Okay? So remember for this one, we're using SOAP. So put our signs in first, same sign, opposite sign, always positive. Okay, so we're going to put the c and the 4 here. We're going to put that c squared here, the 4 squared here, which is 16, and then the product of these two, which is 4c. Okay, that's pretty easy. Let's continue on here. Definitely cubes, a lot of cubes, so this is going to be 2a here, because the cube root of 8 is 2, cube root of 27 is 3, so 3b. Okay, so again, this is a sum of two cubes, so we're using SOAP, same sign, opposite sign, always positive, so the 2a and the 3b go here. This one is 2a squared, which is 4a squared, and this one is 3b squared, which is 9b squared. And then the product of those two, 2 times 3 is 6, A, B, and that's your answer. Okay? It's not bad. The next one is definitely an X method, and there's no greatest common factor here. You always check that first. So this is the X method. So that's going to be negative 48. And then this is 13. So you get your different combinations. I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing that because we've talked about that. But it turns out your combination is 16 and negative 3. 16 minus 3 is 13, and if you multiply 16 times 3, you get 48. Okay? So we get x plus 16 and x minus 3. Now remember, because that's a 4, we divide each of these by 4. Now that one reduces, so that's x plus, and that's just a 4. That one doesn't reduce, so we slide it over. So it's 4x minus 3, and that's your answer for that problem. Okay. Next problem, again, greatest common factor. You always do greatest common factor for every single problem. So you get 2, and then we get n squared minus 16. That is the difference of two squares. Square root of n squared is n. Square root of 16 is 4. So it's 2. So it's n plus 4, n minus 4. Okay. This next one, there's no greatest common factor. This one looks a little scary, but that's okay. So 6 times 15, put in your calculator, and we get 90. Okay, and we have the x method, so it's negative 19 here. And this one's pretty nice. This one's actually negative 9 and negative 10. Negative 9 minus 10 is negative 19, and negative 9 times negative 10 is positive 90. So we get x minus 9, x minus 10. And we divide everything by 6. Now you got to reduce it. I showed you how to do that in your calculator, reduce that fraction. You have to. If you don't do it, it's wrong. Okay, if you move that 6 in front and it says 6x minus 9 and 6x minus 10, it's wrong. Get the wrong answer. Okay, so you got to reduce that in your calculator using the fraction button. Okay, so it's going to be x minus 3 halves and x minus 5 thirds. Okay, then we slide it over. So 2x minus 3 and 3x minus 5. And that's your answer. Okay. All right, cool. All right, let's move on to the next one. All right, so definitely greatest common factor. So we're going to factor out of 3. We get 3. We get a squared plus 4. Now here's the deal. You might think, hey, difference of 2 squares. What does the word difference mean? Difference means subtract. Okay, this is add. You cannot factor it if it's add. So you are actually done with this problem. If you wrote a plus 2, a minus 2, it's wrong. Okay, so that's your final answer. This one's a sum of 2 cubes. 8's a perfect cube, so it's 2, and then x, and then cube root of 1 is 1. So you're going to use SOAP. Same sign, opposite sign, always positive. So you get 2x and 1 here. That's 2x squared, so it's 4x squared. And 1 squared is 1, and then if I multiply those together, I get 2x. So that's your answer. 2x plus 1, 4x squared minus 2x plus 1. Okay? Difference of 2 squares. So that's 8, and that's n. Okay, so don't, just because the variable's at the end, who cares? Plus and minus, and then just write them in there. 8 and n, and 8 and n. Easy. Okay, that's cubes. Okay, so cube root of 27 is 3, cube root of c cubed is c, cube root of 8 is 2. Okay, so we got SOAP, same sign, opposite sign, always positive. So you get 3c and a 2 here. That's 3c squared, which is 9c squared, and 2 squared, which is 4. And then you multiply those together, which gives you 6c. Okay, not too bad. Definitely, they're all even numbers, so definitely divide by 2. That's your greatest common factor. So you get 2 parentheses x squared minus 5x minus 6. And then you got to do the x method. So 1 times negative 6 is negative 6. Put a negative 5 here. And then it's going to be negative 6 times 1 is negative 6, and negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. So there we go. It's 2. And since we're dealing with a 1 here now in front of the x squared, you don't do any slide and divide, just the x method. So it's x minus 6, x plus 1. Okay? All right, so that's basically all the factoring problems. Notice what we have here now, math fans. Solve. Okay, I cannot stress it enough. It says solve, so you need to set each of those terms equal to 0 and solve, and you're going to get an answer of 3 and 5 and 9. Okay, no answers are going to be x plus 5 and x minus 7. That's only when you factor. Okay, so for the first one, it's already solved for you. All right, it's already factored, I should say. So literally, I'm going to take that 6x, and I'm going to take the 2x minus 5, and I'm going to set it equal to 0. So 6x equals 0. 2x minus 5 equals 0. Okay, that one's easy. Divide by 6, x is 0. It's always going to be a 0 when it's just a number on the outside with a variable like that. Okay, this one, I'm going to add 5 to both sides. So 2x equals 5, and divide by 2. X equals 5 halves. There you go. Those are your two answers. 0 and 5 halves. Okay, next one is a difference of 2 squares. Remember, it's got to equal 0, which it does, and then you factor it. So the square root of n squared is n, square root of 81 is 9. So it's n plus 9, n minus 9 equals 0. They said each one of those equals 0. So n plus 9 equals 0, n minus 9 equals 0. So we subtract 9, n equals negative 9, and add 9 to both sides. N equals 9. Okay, there we go. Two answers, negative 9 and 9. Okay, once again, that one's equal to 0. That's good. So let's do x method. So 1 times negative 40 is negative 40. And then we get negative 3 here. Okay, and in this case here, it's going to, again, you do your investigation here, but it's going to be negative 8 and 5. Negative 8 plus 5 is negative 3, and negative 8 times 5 is negative 40. Okay, so it's going to be a minus 8, a plus 5. And we don't have to do any slide and divide because this has a coefficient of 1 in front here, in front of the a squared. Okay, all right, keep going. Now this one's a little weird because it says 10 equals c squared minus 15. Remember what I told you guys to do? You need to move it all to one side. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 10. So I get c squared minus 25 equals 0. Now some of you guys might have said, well, Mr. Curtis, how can we subtract c squared and add 15? The only problem with that is you really want to have that c squared or the squared term to be positive. You really do. It makes things much more difficult when that's, that x term or the x squared term is negative. It really does. Okay. So this is the difference of two squares. So go ahead and factor that. Square root of c squared is c. Square root of 25 is 5. So if I do two sets of parentheses, I get plus or minus, and c and 5, and c and 5. So c plus 5, c minus 5. And that's it. Oh, sorry. Woo, woo! Equal to 0. I didn't even saw that one above here. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What am I doing here? Boo! Totally take points off of this one. That equals 0. Wow, I get so involved in the factoring. So you get a minus 8 equals 0, and a plus 5 equals 0. Come on, you guys should have caught me on this. Maybe you said something. Okay, I'm going to add 8. So I'm going to kind of do up here. So I'm going to add 8 to both sides, get a is equal to 8. And I'm going to subtract 5 here. And so I get a is equal to negative 5. So that's the answer for number 15. Okay, sorry about that, math fans. Okay, 16, so we're back to that one. So we have c plus 5 equals 0, and c minus 5 equals 0. So we're going to subtract 5, c is equal to negative 5, and add 5, so c is equal to 5. So there's our two answers, negative 5 and 5. Okay, that's cool. So yeah, you get a negative 8w squared here. Remember, I want positive values for that w, that squared term. So I'm going to subtract 4, but I'm going to add 8w squared to both sides. So you get 8w squared plus 31w minus 4 equals 0. All right. So it still looks a little scary, but it's not that bad. So I'm going to multiply the 8 and the negative 4, so I get negative 32. And 31. So that's not bad actually. That's actually going to give me a 32 and a negative 1. Right, 32 minus 1 is 31, and 32 times negative 1 is negative 32. That's pretty sweet. So this gives us w plus 32 and w minus 1. And we're going to divide everything by 8. So that reduces to 4. So we actually get w plus 4. That one doesn't reduce, so you're going to slide it over, and you get 8w minus 1. Okay? And then we need to solve. Okay, so let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to divide, we're going to set these equal to 0. So w, let me write over here, w plus 4 equals 0, and 8w minus 1 equals 0. Okay, so I'm going to subtract 4, so w is negative 4, and I'm going to add 1, so 8w equals 1, and divide by 8. So I get W equals 1/8. There you go. There's your two answers, -4 and 1/8. A little crunchy there. Sorry about that. But that's what it is. Okay? All right, cool. Next one is definitely greatest common factor. I can take a 25 out of there and an x. So my greatest common factor is 25x. That's a lot to take out. So you get 25x, and then what's left over here? 2x. And guys, I've had people put a 0 here. Not 0, it's -1. Right? 25x over 25x is not 0, it's 1. It's like 10 over 10 is 1. 100 over 100 is 1. 1 over 1 is 1. Okay? So, that's it. We can do it with, that's all we can do with factoring, right? So now it's going to be 25x equals 0 and 2x minus 1 equals 0. So divide by 25, x is 0, add 1 to both sides, so 2x equals 1, and divide by 2, x is 1/2. So 0 and 1/2. Okay? Just left you a little more room to do all this stuff here, but that's what it is. Okay. This next one is pretty sweet, right? It's already solved. It's already factored for you. So 4x equals 0. That's nice. And 3x minus 1 equals 0. So that one's divided by 4, so x is 0. This is add 1 to both sides, so 3x equals 1. Divide by 3, x is 1/3. So 1/3 and 0. Sweet. That was really good. Next one. I'm going to actually just erase a little bit of this stuff here because it's getting in the way. Okay. There is nothing to, there's no greatest common factor here. Right, do you guys agree with that? So it's an x squared 3. So it just looks like it's a x method. So -18. And then it's going to be 3. And of course, what gives you 18? 6 and 3. So 6 and -3, right? Okay. Okay. And so we got x plus 6, x minus 3 equals 0. So x plus 6 equals 0, x minus 3 equals 0. So I'm just going to move this down just a little bit. I'm going to subtract 6, so x equals -6. I'm going to add 3, so x equals 3. 3 and 6, or -6 and 3. Okay? It's not so bad. Let's keep going here. Okay, so this one you got to move the 49 over. So we got 16x squared minus 49 equals 0. Okay, got to recognize this difference of two squares, guys. X squared is right there, and 16 and 49 are perfect squares. So that's going to give me a 4x, and this is going to give you a 7. So 4x plus 7, 4x minus 7 equals 0. So you got to solve each one of these. So 4x plus 7 equals 0. 4x minus 7 equals 0. So we're going to subtract 7. 4x equals -7. And divide by 4. So x is -7/4. And this one I'm going to add 7. So 4x equals 7. Divide by 4. X is +7/4. So those are your two answers. 7/4 and -7/4. Okay? All right, we got just 3 more. So bear with me. This one is definitely greatest common factor. I'm going to factor out a 6x. So I get 6x, and then parentheses I get just x minus 3 equals 0. So set each of those equal to 0. Divide by 6, x is 0. Add 3, x equals 3. So 3 and 0. Okay, this one I'm going to subtract 3x because it definitely looks like an x method. So you can subtract 3x and subtract 28 from both sides. That gives you x squared minus 3x minus 28 equals 0. Okay, cool. X methods, that gives me -28. That gives me -3. And if you do 7 and 4, 7 times 4 is 28. But if you make it -7 and +4, that still gives you -28, but then that, if I add that, that gives me -3. Okay, so I'm going to get x minus 7, x plus 4. The coefficient was 1, so we don't have to do anything fancy, no slide and divide. So we set each of those equal to 0, x minus 7 equals 0, and x plus 4 equals 0. Add 7, x equals 7, and subtract 4, x equals -4. So 7 and -4. Okay? And then the very last one that looks scary, I'm just going to take out an x. That's all I can take out because you got a 3, 5, and a 2. So my greatest common factor is x. So it's x times 3x squared plus 5x minus 2 equals 0. Okay, so we're going to use the x method. So it gives us -6 and a 5. So what multiplies to give you -6 is 6 and 1, or 2 and 3, but it's negative, so it's got to be +6 and -1, right? 6 minus 1 is 5, but 6 times -1 is -6. Okay, that's cool. So don't forget this x here, right? We factored that out. So it's going to be x times x plus 6, x minus 1. Slide and divide. Here's our 3. We're going to divide each of these by 3. So that just reduces it to 2, x plus 2. And that one slides. So 3x minus 1. Okay? And then I guess that's equal to 0, of course. Okay? And then I'm just going to do it over here because I ran out of room. X equals 0. X plus 2 equals 0. And 3x minus 1 equals 0. So that one's just 0. That's done. Minus 2. So x equals -2. And then this one is add 1. So 3x equals 1. Divide by 3. X is 1/3. Okay, so let me just circle all these. We got 1/3. We have -2. And we have 0 for number 24. Okay? So that's it, math fans. I'll tell you, if you can do all these problems, you are good to go for the test. It's basically solving and factoring, and make sure you know how to do all the different kinds of factoring. Difference of two squares, sum and difference of two cubes, the x method, greatest common factor, and then pulling it all together. Okay? So hopefully we're good to go, math fans. Study hard for that test and do well. Have a nice day. Adios, math fans. Goodbye.